Hey, welcome back to episode 114 of the Health with Hashimoto's podcast. I'm trying something new this time, and I am going on video and audio. So if you're listening to the regular podcast, awesome. If you also want to see this, it will be on YouTube, and I'm going to put it on my Facebook so that you can see the words and all of that, just to try something new. Let me know if you like it. So, okay, let me switch my screen here. Today, we're going to talk about GLP-1 and weight loss. Now, back several months ago, I want to say maybe 6 or 7 months ago, I did an episode on GLP-1 and weight loss. Now, all of the information on that episode is correct, except at the end, I looked at benefits versus risks and said maybe the benefits outweigh the risks. Well, more has come to light, and I can no longer say that. So, if you've listened to that episode, I just want to add that disclaimer up front. I can no longer say that the benefits outweigh the risks, but we're going to talk about all of that, what GLP-1 is, what the medications are. And I know that women with Hashimoto's have struggled so much to lose weight. You feel like you're doing everything that you can. You're eating right, you're exercising, you're sleeping, you're drinking enough water, you're doing all of the things and still not losing weight. You have 10, 15, maybe 50 pounds that you would like to release. You don't want to lose it and then find it again. You want to release it for good. And I know that you're struggling and you're looking for hope. And GLP-1 agonists are a type of drug that has just taken the market by storm. 6% of people in the US have tried them. And that's millions, millions and millions of people. So we know that they are popular. But let's talk about what they are, what they do, and a little bit about if they might be the right choice for you. But like I said, the benefits do not outweigh the risks, but there's natural ways to increase your GLP-1. So a little bit about me. If you are not familiar with this podcast, I am a registered nurse. I am a holistic health educator. I and my husband have been married for almost 21 years. We have 4 boys. We homeschool 2 of them, and 2 of them go to a local charter school. I am the host of this podcast, Health with Hashimoto's. I am also the creator of the Holistic Hashimoto's course. So in the GLP-1 series, I'm going to do 3 episodes, I think. Maybe I'll extend it to 4 based on conversations with you, input, or feedback. Today, we're talking about GLP-1, weight loss, and meds. In the next episode, we will talk about how I can naturally increase your GLP-1. And then in the following episode, we'll do a new GLP-1 system so that you can increase your GLP-1 and lose weight. Also on this one, if you are watching it, there is a really cool image of a woman who's 250 pounds, and this is internal. You can see all of the white fat, the adipose tissue. And just look at the organs, how compressed the organs are. And then you can also see a 150-pound woman next to her, and the organs have so much more space. They are not compressed, they are not squished by all of the fat. And of course, we want to be healthy as we can on the outside and on the inside. So, first, what is GLP-1? It is a hormone. It's a natural hormone in your body. When you eat, you have 4 different hormones that all are signaled when you eat. GLP-1 is one of them. The other ones, let me tell you, it's like GIP and PYY and CKK. Now, all of those are activated or triggered when you eat. GLP-1, we know more because of the medications. So I'm mostly going to talk about that one. But what it does is primarily it regulates your blood sugar. It tells your pancreas to release the right amounts of insulin, and it tells the liver to slow down glucose release. Now, your liver is constantly releasing small amounts of sugar into your bloodstream because your cells need energy. And so when you eat, your stomach, the GLP-1, is like, hey, I got this. You can slow down for a little bit. We're getting enough sugar from the food. So the liver slows down its production of sugar so that your food can do what your food does. And then the insulin we're going to talk about in another slide. The second thing the GLP-1 does is it slows gastric emptying. And the The agonists or the medications seem to also slow the gut. The natural GLP-1, when your body makes it on its own, it does not slow down your gut, at least as far as I can tell. It's the agonists, it's the pharmaceutical mimics that tends to slow down the gut. But all GLP-1, the natural stuff, the real stuff, and the pharmaceutical mimics, they slow down your gastric emptying. So that's your stomach itself. And that's a good thing because you want your stomach to tell your brain, hey, we're full. Also, you want the food as it's leaving your stomach to go kind of slowly because remember, I said there's 4 different hormones that are all triggered. Well, as your food is leaving your stomach, that's when it's triggering some of those hormones and some of the pathways. And we want the food to go by slow enough so that it can, so it can talk to those things that are now going to send information all over your body. So, number 2, it slows gastric emptying. And then the third thing it does is it reduces appetite. It does this in your brain. Your brain has GLP-1 receptors, and so when the GLP-1 is released from your body or as a medication, it reduces that appetite. It also, we talk about food noise. That's not a really common phrase yet. I believe it will be, but food noise is how much space food and food thoughts take up in your brain. That would be all of the cravings. It would be the constantly thinking about what am I going to eat next or what do I want, or all of that food talk, that food noise in the background of your brain. It reduces that, or it can reduce it. So let's talk about blood sugar for a minute. When you eat, of course, you're getting nutrients from what you eat. Obvious, right? Well, our cells need energy in order to run. Also obvious. The energy that our cells use is sugar, it's glucose. So when we eat, we provide energy in the form or fuel in the form of glucose, and our body can turn different sugars into what we need, and that's awesome. But our cells can only use so much energy. So when there's extra energy, it has to go somewhere. And also, it has to go into the cells so that they can use it. So when we eat, our body releases insulin in response to how much sugar we eat. The insulin's job is to let the sugar go into the cells to fuel the cells. Now, if your cells have enough fuel and you have extra sugar in your bloodstream, then the insulin's like, well, I got to put this somewhere. So it shoves it into fat. In fact, if you hear me talk about insulin on past episodes, I usually refer to insulin as the fat storage hormone because it shoves the extra sugar in your bloodstream into your into your fat cells, so it can be stored for later. And that's not is not doing a bad thing. It's doing exactly what it's supposed to do because we do not want extra sugar running around in our bloodstream. We would break. Like that's not how our bodies are designed. So the insulin is our God-given gift to take care of the sugar inside our bloodstream. And again, it allows the sugar to go into the cells to provide the fuel. And then if there's too much, then it shoves it into the fat cells. It also can store some sugar in some muscle cells. It can store some in the liver. Primarily, it stores it in fat cells. The complications of this is when you have too much sugar running around your body or chronically elevated insulin. So, like your body is constantly trying to put the insulin or the sugar somewhere, then you can develop a lot of complications. Big ones are heart disease, kidney damage, and nerve problems, but really it impacts every single cell. So, it's kind of a big deal. And this goes for if you're diabetic or not. I was listening to a functional medicine doctor yesterday, and she said there's a test that you can do. I did not know. It's a regular cholesterol test, and you divide it by something else. It was 2 like common things, and you divide one by the other, and that tells you your risk for diabetes and how your body is dealing with all of this sugar and insulin. And what they're finding when they do that math equation, 80% of US adults, and I would assume that also is the same for you if you're listening in, Europe or Australia. I know I have listeners all around the world, but that's the same, I would assume, for all, Western medicine and like highly processed countries, I would assume. So 80% of us are at risk for diabetes. Our bodies are already not doing well with insulin and sugar. It's kind of scary. Um, so let's talk about GLP-1 agonists. Now, agonists is just a fancy name to say like a mimic. Pharmaceutically, they have tried to create this GLP-1 hormone, but of course, people cannot make exactly what God made. So it is a mimic, and because it is a mimic, it doesn't work exactly like the GLP-1 hormone does in your body. So they refer to these medications as GLP-1 agonists. So when you hear agonists, just think mimics. They're trying to do what God designed your body to do naturally. These are some of the names. So semaglutide is probably the most common one. The names for those would be Ozempic, Wegovy, and Rybelsus. Rybelsus is a tablet or a drop. I can't remember. It's oral. The other ones are shots. Most of these are shots. There's also liraglutide. That would be Saxenda and Victoza. Um, Tirapatide, I might be butchering these names. Sorry. So tirapatide is Mounjaro. And I know a lot of people have switched to Mounjaro if their insurance will cover it because that one is GLP-1 and GIP. Remember I said there's 4 different hormones that are triggered when we eat all in our stomach. GIP is one of them. And that one is, it impacts your gastric in let me see if I can get this out. Gastric inhibitory, oh my goodness, gastric inhibitory peptide. It regulates your nutrient balance and it has a positive effect on your heart function, your bone strength, and your cognition. So that's your thinking. So that's the tirzepatide. And then there's others, exenatide, which is Byetta and Bidurion. Again, I might be butchering these names. Dulaglutide is Trulicity. Lexendatide is Aldixine, I think you say. Albiglutide is Tanzium. And then there's a really long one, Fpeglenatide. And I did practice these all before I started recording. You can't tell, right? Um, Unfortunately, these are huge for costs. This is not the same in Europe. Europe is not as broken. They do have a broken medical system, but it's not as broken as the US. And in the US, the insurance companies have this agreement with the pharmaceutical companies that the insurance companies will make a lot of money. So when you use insurance, then insurance covers a bulk of this if they approve it for you. But just out of pocket, the oral tablets cost between $250 and $940 per month. And typically it's around that $900 mark. And then the injectables, which is all of the other ones, I think everything except for one on that last list, the injectables cost between $720 and $1,300 per pen. Now, remember I said most of them are injectables, so they come in a pen and you dial it to however much you need, and then you put that in your subcutaneous fat. So whether you use your arm or your belly or your thigh, you put it in in that fat. And that's how it works. All of these are crazy, ridiculously expensive. If insurance covers this for you, your cost will be lower. I've seen as low as like $25 a month. However, the people that I have talked to, my friends, they say insurance covered it for a little while and then their insurance stopped covering it. And then they have to pay out of pocket or go off of it. And so that is it's another cost. Like the cost of stress, worrying about it, trying to have this hope, trying to have this solution and not being able to afford it. That is also a cost. That cost of our brain power and of our stress and our emotions, that's big. So let's talk about some of the benefits. I've pulled a chart from a website called Diabetes Daily. They compared a whole bunch of them. They looked at the drug. They looked at the number of weeks that were done in that drug's trial. They looked at the A1C reduction. So the A1C is a lab value that you have, and it tells how your blood glucose has been regulated over the past, I think is it 90 days or 6 months? I know it's your historic value of how your body is doing for blood sugar balance. And we want that to be on the lower end. So it looked at the A1C reduction. It also looked at how much weight people are losing. And then the delivery form. Like I said earlier, only one of them is a pill, and that's the Ribelsis. All of the other ones are injectable. So people are losing weight. The studies varied between 26 weeks and 52 weeks was the longest one. And people were losing on average between 5 and about 28 pounds. So that's pretty significant, right? The 5 pounds, that was the 26 weeks. So as you are on it longer, although there's a 52-week that people only lost 8 pounds. So people are losing weight. The A1C is going down. People are having benefits. And this is why we love these medications, because people are getting the benefits that they're looking for so hard. Their blood sugar is more regulated. Their weight is coming down. But what about the side effects? I said, when I am educating patients here on the podcast or on one-on-one consulting, or when I was in the emergency department for 17 years, or when I worked in the clinic for a little while up in Alaska, one of my jobs is to educate my people, my patients, to empower them to make the best decision for them. Only you can make the best decision for you. You are your best patient advocate, and you get to balance what are the potential benefits versus what are the potential risks. And unfortunately, these GLP-1 agonists, again, think GLP-1 mimics, they do have side effects. Now you can see that there's a whole bunch of different medications, right? They have a whole bunch of different medications because the drug companies want to minimize the complications, but they're not succeeding. So these side effects are side effects for all of the GLP-1 agonists. And I was talking to a friend the other day. Her sister is about to go on one of the GLP-1s, and her sister is saying, my doctor said the side effects on this one are less, and basically the benefits outweigh the risks. Let me tell you about the risks. And again, this goes for all of the GLP-1 agonists. The biggest one, okay, so there's death. That's a really big one. It's not as common, although in the last, let me look, um, in the last 6 months, there's been a 40% increase in the amount of deaths from these GLP-1 agonists. There have been 162 deaths over the course that these have been on the market. In 2018, there were 62,000 reported reactions. And now every reaction does not get reported to this database. In fact, it's actually, speaking as a nurse and somebody who sees medication reactions, and my coworkers also see them. I don't think any of us have ever reported it. And the doctors I worked closely with, I don't think they ever reported them. So my thought is the amount that actually gets reported is way, way, way smaller than the actual amount. But either way, in 2018, there were 62,000 reported reactions to GLP-1 agonists. Out of those 62,000, 10,000 of them were serious, which means there were complications that required hospitalization or even, like I said, death. So death is obviously a big one, but the most common one is muscle loss. And when you're losing weight, you want to lose fat. You do not want to lose muscle, right? Because our muscle, it provides a lot of our metabolism. And so we want to have that energy burning. We want to have muscle so that we're strong enough to live. We want to be able to have quality of life, and we need strong muscles to do that. Unfortunately, when people go on these GLP-1 agonists, think mimics, they're losing 60% muscle and only 40% fat. So if you lose 10 pounds, that means 6 pounds of that was from your muscle mass, and only 4 pounds were from your fat. And that is devastating, because you are lowering your metabolic rate because you've just lost that muscle. And when people go off of the medications, then they gain back all of the weight, but they're not gaining back the muscle. So if you went on the medications, you lost 10 pounds, and 6 of that was muscle, and now you went off the medications, you've regained the 10 pounds, all 10 pounds you've regained as fat. Again, like I said, devastating. Also, people are losing bone density. Now, anytime you lose weight, you do lose a little bit of bone density, but they're seeing more and more bone density lost from these GLP-1 agonists than from other forms of healthy weight loss. Other side effects are a lot of the things that you see because of how it works. A lot of the gastric intestinal stuff, vomiting and diarrhea, things are running out both ends. Also, constipation, very, very common, unfortunately. There's also nausea and abdominal pain. And then you have pancreas, thyroid, and kidney problems. I went into one um, medication website for providers, and I could not move into the website until I clicked the acknowledgement that these medications have a high risk of thyroid cancer. It's not really a risk that I want to take. One of my friends who is a nurse in the ICU, she's taking care of somebody who has necrotizing pancreatitis. So their pancreas got inflamed and their pancreas started dying. And it's worse than that. Look up necrotizing anything if you want. It's not good. There's also kidney problems with this. And like I said, death is also a side effect. These GLP-1 agonists do have side effects. They carry so much hope. We want their benefits, but they do have side effects and they are impacting a lot of people. We want to think that will never happen to us, but these do happen. And unfortunately, to a lot of people. Like I said earlier, you always have to look at the scale, benefit versus risk. So, are the benefits of these GLP-1 agonists more than the risks? And like I said back in that earlier episode I said maybe they do. But now I've seen more data. It's been, like I said, I think 6 months since I did that one, and more has come out. And no longer can I say that. The benefits do not outweigh the risks, especially since in the next couple episodes, I will be telling you how we can activate your own GLP. Remember, GLP-1 agonists are mimic. They're mimicking what God gave you and how your body is supposed to work. So in the next couple episodes, we will talk about activating that so that you can lose weight naturally using the GLP-1 that God gave you. Please, if you haven't already, excuse me, subscribe to the podcast. It's available in all podcast players. And I just found out that the podcast players, they prioritize like how much they're going to show people my podcast based on subscribers. Ratings and reviews are awesome, but being a subscriber is the number one thing you can do for me. And it's so easy because you just click that little follow button. I will see you next week on the Health with Hashimoto's podcast.